I'd hold off sending that. I'll mention it to her for you. It lands better coming from me. Nothing in that sentence is unkind. Nobody would report it. And the person who said it is probably the most helpful person on the team. Most advice about toxic coworkers starts with the rude one, the one who takes the credit, or talks over you, or goes quiet when you walk in. This video is about the other one, the one who helps. Because the sentence you just heard does something very specific. It doesn't insult you. It doesn't block you. It just moves one of your conversations through somebody else. And it asks your permission first. Two people. Same job title. Same rank. They joined within a month of each other, so neither one outranks the other, and neither one has been there longer. Call them Julian and Owen. There is exactly one difference between them. Their manager, Nadia, talks to Julian. Not formally. She just does. He catches her on the way out of things. Owen books time. That is the whole asymmetry. And it is enough. Here is the part that is hard to believe, so start with the evidence. In 2002, in the Academy of Management journal, Duffy and colleagues studied social undermining among police officers in the Republic of Slovenia. They measured two things separately: how much undermining a person was getting and how much support. And they found that undermining was significantly associated with employee outcomes, in most cases more strongly than support was. Then they found the thing this video is about. High levels of undermining and support from the same source were associated with negative outcomes. The same source. One person doing both. That is an association and not a cause. They measured a pattern in one occupation, in one country. But it is the pattern nobody warns you about. A toxic work environment is not always built out of hostility. Sometimes the support and the damage arrive in the same sentence, from the same person. And the support is real. Which means the standard advice, spot the hostile one, hold a boundary, stop reacting, is listening for a signal this version never sends. Tactic 1. The relay. I'll mention it to her for you. Watch what that offer actually is. It is not an offer to help with the work. It is an offer to carry the message. And it is generous. Julian is spending his own standing on Owen's idea, which is a real cost to him and a real gift to Owen. But look at the shape it leaves behind. Before the offer, there is a line between Owen and Nadia. After it, there are two lines, and both of them run through Julian. There is a name for that position. Ronald Burt, writing in the American Journal of Sociology in 2004, studied 673 supply chain managers inside one large American electronics company. 455 of them answered his questions about who they talked to. He was interested in the people whose contacts reached across gaps nobody else was bridging, and he found that compensation, positive performance evaluations, promotions, and good ideas were disproportionately in the hands of those people. And he found the other side of it, which matters more here. Managers sitting inside a closed circle of contacts had their ideas dismissed 43% of the time. In the middle band, it was 37. For the managers who bridged the gaps, 14. Burt is careful about what that means, and so is this. It is one company, in 1 year, and it is an association rather than a cause. His own description of what a network even is makes the point. Networks do not act. They are a context for action. But the shape is the point. Advice about difficult co-workers almost always ends in withdrawal. Grey rock, disengage, give them nothing. Applied here, withdrawal finishes the job the offer started. The help is real, and it sits between you and someone who rates you, not between you and the work. The counter, take the help and keep the line. That'd be great, copy me in, and I'll pick it up with her after. Tactic 2. The conspicuous assist. The usual advice about toxic people at work tells you to listen for the put-down. This one is a compliment. It is delivered in public, and it costs you more. Nadia is in the room. Owen is presenting. Halfway through, Julian leans in and says, warmly, I helped him pull the numbers on this. Happy to walk anyone through the method. Every word of that is true. Julian did help. He is offering to help again, and he has just handed Nadia a reason to divide Owen's work in half. There is a study on exactly this, and it gave the move a name. In 1996, in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, Daniel Gilbert and David Silvera published a paper called Overhelping. Their definition is this: overhelping occurs when one attempts to spoil an observer's impression of a performer by explicitly helping the performer achieve a goal, thereby inviting the observer to attribute the performer's success to the help. Before this goes any further, the authors put a warning in their own discussion, and it belongs here rather than at the end. They write that it would be a serious misreading of their work to conclude that people are ruthless misanthropes bent on destroying the reputations of their competitors, that they typically do so in the guise of providing aid, or that the kindness of strangers is generally ill-intended. None of those, they say, can or should be drawn. So hold both things at once. The move is real, and it was demonstrated. It is not what most helpful people are doing. What they did next is the useful part. In one experiment, undergraduates built an anagram test for a job applicant. They could make the test easier by handing over hint letters. Half of them were told to give the applicant the best possible chance. The other half were told to do the opposite and to try to reduce it. Watch what that second group did. When the applicant was ordinary, they held the hints back. They made the test hard. When the applicant was brilliant, they went the other way entirely. They handed over more hints and made it easy. And making it easy was how they went after him. In a second experiment, a different group of students watched those results and judged the applicants. Observers formed more negative impressions of the brilliant applicant when he had been overhelped than when he had been hindered. And here is the limit the same experiment found, which is the part you can use. It only worked on the applicants who were good. When the identical trick was played on the ordinary applicant, it backfired. Observers thought better of him, not worse. Read that back the other way, and it is not a comfortable sentence. If someone is overhelping you in public, the move only pays them if you were already good enough not to need it. These were students in a laboratory, doing an invented task for course credit. The authors say plainly that this work does not tell us if or how often overhelping may occur in natural settings. The help is announced rather than given, and it is announced to the person who scores you. The counter? Put the help back where it happened. Julian did. He pulled the raw numbers on Tuesday, and I built the model from them. Tactic 3, the preemptive edit. I'd hold off sending that, 5 words, and they arrive as protection. Every time Owen accepts them, one message that was going to reach Nadia in Owen's own words does not. Sometimes the reason given is a good one. Sometimes it is even correct. That is what makes this one hard. The preemptive edit does not require Julian to be wrong about the email. It only requires him to be the one who decides when Owen speaks. There is research on the withholding half of this. In the Journal of Organizational Behavior in 2012, Connolly and colleagues set out a construct they called knowledge hiding and established it as a thing in its own right, distinct from knowledge sharing and from hoarding. Across 3 studies, using different methods, they found it came in 3 related forms, which they named evasive hiding, rationalized hiding, and playing dumb. Each of the 3 was predicted by distrust, though each also had its own separate set of interpersonal and organizational predictors. That first point is the one to keep. Distrust predicted all 3, which points at the relationship and at the organization around it, rather than at a personality, and it can run in both directions at once, without either person deciding to be anybody's enemy. Toxic coworkers, in this frame, describes a position. It is not a diagnosis of a person. The edit always delays, and it never speeds anything up. The counter? Take the note and keep the send. That's fair. I'll add it and send it this afternoon. Tactic 4, the warm exclusion. This is the one that shows up in the calendar rather than in the conversation. There is a call on Thursday. Owen is not on it. Afterwards, Julian tells him, kindly, and without being asked, it was a nothing meeting. I wasn't going to drag you into it on a Thursday. Nothing was said about Owen in that meeting. Nothing needed to be said. He was not there, and being there is how the other 3 people on the call learned each other's names. Exclusion is the thing the research takes most seriously and offices take least seriously. In organization science in 2015, Jane O'Reilly and colleagues found that employees rated ostracism as more acceptable and less harmful than harassment. That is a finding about how people judge it. It is not a finding about what it does. What it does was a separate study inside the same paper. Ostracism, but not harassment, predicted whether people had actually left the organization 3 years later. 2 qualifiers travel with that, and they are not decoration. It is a predictive association and not proof of cause. And the explanation the authors tested for that turnover result, that it runs through a broken sense of belonging, reached only a weak level of statistical support, which is why workplace bullying, as a category, keeps missing this one. The category is built around the things that get said. The warm exclusion is built entirely out of a thing that was not. The tell. You find out afterwards, and you find out from the same person every time. The counter. Ask to be in the room, not to be told about the room. Put me on it next time, even if it's nothing. I'd rather hear it live. Now the part this argument needs, because without it, the argument eats everything. Almost everyone who offers to mention something to your manager is simply offering to mention something to your manager. Most people who tell you to hold off on an email are trying to stop you sending a bad email. A colleague who helps you in public is, nearly always, helping you in public. So here is a test, and it has to be able to come back negative. Count your direct contacts, not your grievances. Over the last 3 months, has the number of people you speak to yourself, with nobody carrying it for you, gone up or down? If it has gone up, this video is not about your situation, however irritating somebody is being. Irritating is not the same as positional, and this channel is not in the business of teaching you to reread a friendly colleague as a threat. If it has gone down, notice one more thing first. Did it go down through one person or through all of them at once? Through all of them, and you are probably busy or remote or new. Through one, repeatedly, and the pattern is worth watching. Neither answer asks you to decide what anybody intended. You do not need to. Here is what changes when you name it. The 4 moves were the relay, the conspicuous assist, the preemptive edit, and the warm exclusion. Read them together and they share one property. Not one of them is an attack. Every one of them is a favor, and every one of them ends with a line of yours running through somebody else, which is why the standard fix underperforms. Building a strong ally somewhere else in the building feels like the answer. In the Slovenian data, support from one source appeared to only modestly attenuate the negative effects of undermining coming from another source. Support elsewhere is not a replacement for the line you lost. The counter is not a confrontation, and it is not withdrawal. It is smaller than both. Every time a favor would remove a direct contact, take the favor and keep the contact. Copy me in. I'll send it this afternoon. Put me on the invite. None of those sentences accuse anybody of anything. That is deliberate. You cannot prove intent, and you do not need to, because the fix works whether the person meant it or not, which is the strongest evidence that the problem was never the person. The dialogue in this video is composed. The studies are real. Julian, Owen, and Nadia are not. If this landed, the next one is the version that happens in a room you were never invited to, where the decision is already made before the meeting that formally makes it. That is the next video.